Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Vector Lab. Today, we're back with Nehmé. Nehmé has done a lot of work around building autonomous agents without code, which led to creating Kasal. We've already done a video about this, but there's been a lot of updates since then that Nehmé is going to present. But first, before we start, Nehmé, can you remind us who you are and what Kasal is in a nutshell?
Hi, Lara. Hi, Maria. Happy to be here again on this podcast. So, Nehmé Tome, I'm the data and AI strategist in the Château region at Databricks, Switzerland, Austria, and East Europe. Part of my role at Databricks, think of it as you would be helping the customers focusing on the business desired goals they are wanting to achieve and then mapping them to the capabilities to achieve those desired goals. And I'll be talking about Kasal. So Kasal is a solution that allows non-technical people to build agents. But the vision started already last year about imagine you want to start with a business question. And that business question is, I want to be able to do diligence on a particular topic. And that means that I want to be able to go through a series of steps and have that business context always carried over all these different steps. So how would I be able to do that? At Databricks, we have a lot of nice building blocks and mainly a lot of effort around evaluating the quality and making sure that we're connecting the structured data, the unstructured data, the ecosystem around the environment that the organization is having. How can we make that experience simple, seamless, or simpler for the business stakeholders? And that was the goal back then. In the first session we had, I talked about kind of the capabilities, big picture that we looked into in order to achieve that. So Kasal is a sort of a UI that allows you to build agents. And the agents, the nice thing about those agents are, it's not a technical agent. It is a role-based agent. That means an agent, you could think of it as a data analyst, a marketing researcher, a developer, a risk manager, news researcher. So this is a non-technical person would be able to easily understand, okay, I can understand what that role is. And then that's the definition of that role of the agent. And then once you have an agent, alone an agent doesn't do anything unless you empower it with tasks. And those tasks are the unit of execution that you do. So for instance, this marketing researcher agent, you could say, I want to give it a task to go and then connect online, search from particular customer segments, gather that data, and then take it to the next level, be able to cross-check it with your existing customer list, then be able to filter out important list of customers. Then you want to take it to the next step to try to understand a bit more about those lists. So how would that experience be in terms of a non-technical stakeholder? A lot of that thought went through in this direction. That's Kasal mainly.
Question, Nehmé. So the idea of framing these agents as like role-based, was it like a conscious decision on how we can make non-technical people understand what these agents or components do instead of saying, okay, this marketing researcher is an agent plus maybe some tools, instead of doing that and going in that technical level? Is why you created this role-based definition?
Yep. So the role-based definition per se is not something that I created in Kasal. So what happened was at the moment when I started, there were a lot of different agentic frameworks that are working. And those agentic frameworks, they were having strong points in different areas. So in terms of, for example, LangGraph had capabilities in terms of node state and being able to actually kind of doing a lot of different tasks and then maintaining that state. On the other hand, there were other frameworks out there, and there was this framework called Crew AI. And Crew AI had this concept of the role-based agents. And since, again, as a data and AI strategist, we want to be able to focus on the business outcome and simplify that story for our stakeholder, it really resonated. And then I started to see the big picture, how we could abstract away all these complexities into those role-based agents, and then try to do a lot of heavy lifting behind the scene for the business stakeholder in order to go with them through their journey.
Amazing. Should we see it and
Absolutely.
start discussing on it?
Absolutely. In terms of creating that experience with the agent, what you'd be able to do here is you have, last time I was presenting it, you could start from an empty canvas. So mainly you here what you see in front of you is a canvas that you could start from scratch and you could start to define your agents. Now that agent can be done manually. Last time I was presenting it, that you could say, give a name, role, goal, a bit of backstory, that agent. But the new CASL simplified that whole experience, that everything you need to do is within this space, this assistant that you're seeing in front of you. So
Kasal. Nehmé, one question. Before, last time when we were discussing this project, it was not yet in the marketplace, right?
correct. So at the moment, if you go on Databricks, you would go on the marketplace. So you would be searching for Kasal and you will see Kasal on the marketplace. You could click
Yes.
onto it on the marketplace, and with one click, you could install it. And the
Amazing.
nice thing that the setup that is available at Databricks brings along all the integration when it comes to the security. So that means that there is this concept of on behalf of. That means that if you've authenticated already to the Databricks workspace and you already have the token that allows you to connect to Databricks, what we will do is, as an app, Kasal as an app within Databricks will take that particular authentication, and then if you have access to the data, then you would be able through Kasal to have access to the data, because we carry on that permission through. And this becomes quite nice, because what you need to do is just install Kasal, and once you have it installed, all you do afterwards is everything that you do is carried on in terms of permissions and security and everything that integrates or connects to the different building blocks of Kasal. So that's quite powerful. So
Okay,
that
so
means,
Just to clarify,
oops, sorry.
just to clarify for people who don't know about Databricks, so that means I'm not allowed to query data that I don't have access to, because you have everything that's governed and all the security, like the permissions, are figured through this marketplace that I can get Kasal from.
correct. So in terms of Databricks, we are a data and AI company that is end-to-end governed. And a lot of the effort that we started already 5 years ago is how we can make that journey simple. So that was a mandate from our CEO. And making that simple through, I want to ETL the data. I want to be able to interact with or transform my data in a way that even if I have large amount of data and I want to use different components with that, making simple is something that a lot of effort went into that. So this follows the same kind of philosophy onto how can we create agents in a simple approach. And with Databricks, we have mainly something that is around allowing us to talk to our data, to build agents, to be able to have access to the different dashboards. They were all based on that same philosophy, and Kasal followed that same philosophy.
And so you don't have to build any extra building blocks, right? So everything that you've done or set up for this user as of now are propagated to this interface.
Correct. So through the marketplace, whenever you want to build agents would require different things to deal with. So you're empowering agents to do decisions on your behalf. So you want to anchor them in data. If within the Databricks you already have your data available, that means that by just installing it on the marketplace, you will allow them to have data on access to the data that is in your environment within Databricks. Now, if you want to get data from the marketplace as well, that is within the Databricks environment. You need to be able to create those connection points to the data in the marketplace. Now, once you have the data, once you have the information that you want to then be able to build agents on top of that, that's when you come to Kasal.
Sounds good, yeah.
Okay. And here, what you have is, so this particular interface, within this interface, what you would be able to do is say, you could either create one particular agent, let's say create a data analyst agent. And that one simple question around, so create data analyst agent, that one particular sentence is going to actually be calling multiple things. The first thing, it will be calling instructions that are available within your environment that are predefined and you could actually tune as well. It's also going to access a knowledge base that understands your business specifics. So you can have a memory that is mainly connecting to a service within Databricks. It's called vector search. And what that means is that anything that you want to have in terms of terms and corpus of text that is familiar within your business, your type of business, you would be able to mainly hydrate your environment with. Now, out of the box, there are indexes that are getting best practices of building those agents. They will be used, but that means that those particular information, you could always hydrate them based on the type and nature of business that you want to deal with. So what you see here in terms of the memory, so when I started to say here, create a data analyst, what happens behind the scene when you generated this agent is it carried all the instructions of how you want to create those agents, but at the same time, it queried the memory. And then now the LLM is able to have a good context of what that agent means in terms of this context, in terms of this Kasal environment that you're having. And
So,
then
Nehmé, when you say in this case memory, you're talking about how I can make my agent more up to date and ground them to business data rather than kind of past conversations memory, right?
both.
Both. Okay.
So the nice part is there are two types of memory. If we look at this particular, we have something called the workspace. Within workspace, this is where I'm creating my agents. And within the workspace, I have many things connected to my workspace. I have the memory, which are of four types. I'll go into them in details. There are how I want to track all my runs and make sure that I'm having a high quality in terms of the answer. I want to be able to store all these interactions in some place where I know that there is security and I could always go back to. I want to enable those agents to equip them with tools that I want to use. And mainly, I want to tune those workspaces with instructions. Whenever I want to create one agent or many agents, I want to tune how I want to create tasks and then dictate how I want to basically go along that. So for a non-technical person, they don't need to worry about that. But for the person who is working on the environment to tune it and tailor it to the business needs, then they would start to work onto how they want to have the memory. So in terms of the memory, I'll quickly, briefly show what that memory is. On the upper side, you have this, think of it as the best practices of any agents that you want to run. You have a memory that says, okay, so this is how to create cruise best practices. That's how I am going to basically, what does it mean in terms of a crew? What does it mean in terms of agent for the underlying engine that runs? But the other crews, the other memories are quite powerful because those are my existing runs that I was creating in terms of running those crews. So you have three types of memory. You have the short-term memory. That means that, let me actually show you a run. That would be the nicest thing. So I took here, I have a customer investment analyst. So if I look at the trace, or I look at the that particular plan, that particular plan was mainly, I was saying, look, I want to create in one prompt. I want to be able to create that agent. I want to be able to do a particular due diligence on XYZ topic. So I simply put that prompt in and then run it. When I run it, now I see here I have a trace. I could see that I have a marketing researcher agent, and that agent is going to conduct research on a specific company, let's say. And I see that I used Perplexity as a tool that called Perplexity. I got the answer back, and then I have that answer from Perplexity. Now that answer, I could give it to another tool that can produce an output. So here I said, okay, produce an output that identifies that business investment, or I'm a bank and I want to be able to help those particular customers do that particular calls internally within my database, but also on that context that you got from externally. So what you see here in front of you is producing a result. So and that result can be either in an HTML form that you would be able to visualize it really nicely, or it could be an email that has to be sent, or it could be a dashboard that has to be created. So for instance, here I had a previous run, and that previous run was, I'm calling my campaign marketing campaign room. So I have here a task that is going to read my data into in the marketing tables, and then going to produce a dashboard. So if I click into the dashboard, I would be able to see that agent was querying my data, going and looking into the things that I was interested in, which is being able to identify the most effective marketing campaign, and then in the end, produce a dashboard that I would be able to use afterwards. Now that dashboard, I could, share it in an email, or I could submit it, store it on Databricks volume so other colleagues can see it, but also they would be able to go on Kasal and see that particular dashboard that is available here. I'll love to take any questions.
Yeah. So to start with, like the setup for this to work is, do I need to go and log in all the tools that are available? So then when I prompt it and I say I want to build a market research agent, it knows what tools I have available and may be relevant to this agent, to be attached to this agent.
Was it pre-populated? Like you see, did I understand right? It's pre-populated with the instructions, but then if you want, you can tailor it as you see fit.
Correct. So in terms of initially when you deploy Kasal comes with pre-populated instructions on how to create an agent, how to create a task, how to create a team of agents that are working together, and then also best practices about what information those plans would require. So this is mainly happening before you run any particular workload. The moment you start to run the workloads, there is the memory that starts to hydrate itself. And the memory mainly is going to pick up, depends on the workload that you run. So for instance, here, I have something called a short-term memory, meaning that all the agents while they are running, I asked an agent to go and, let's say, create a training material for me on this particular topic, BM25. So now if I have two agents and both of them are working within creating that BM25 presentation for me, they will have a common memory that they will be able to know about. It will be a common context. And that short-term memory is going to be powerful because mainly if I have context, maximum context window, I would always be able to go through that context short-term memory. There's another memory that is, while it is running, it is also powerful, which is called the entity memory. That means that the context of the memory or the context that a task needs to do might be quite large. So how can I be able to get the information that is that is good for that particular context? And entity memory is, in a way, I'm able to track all my entities. So for example, here I had a workload that was supposed to create a quiz to be able to have a multiple choice questions on Databricks certifications. And what I track here is the entity and the relationship between those topics. So I would be able to run that workload. And once I run it, I would be able to visualize that particular context of those particular terms and entities that are within that particular workload. And this is quite powerful because what that means is that next time I'm going to run those particular agents, I can basically identify the relationships across the different entities so that I could pass them between the different topics I was looking into. So that can become quite powerful, especially for the runtime. Now, the long-term memory, think of it as the long-term memory is a different story. Long-term memory is I produced a workload that was producing 1,000 tokens, or let's say a larger number, 10,000 tokens. And from that computation, I was able to figure out some important nuances. So how can I make sure that the next time I'm running those agents, I could re-leverage what I ran previously as in the form of suggestion? Because you've been creating a JavaScript that needed to have a presentation library. Hey, by the way, I have something in the past that I've done, and I was using this technique, and I will add it as a suggestion in the memory. So the next time that particular workload is going to run, for example, I ran a workload today in one simple sentence, and I said, read all the Swiss news and then create a nice presentation from it. Really one simple sentence that I created. And that sentence went and then created a lovely presentation for me. Now, that presentation didn't come out of nowhere. It came because the memory had the long-term suggestion that said, look, if you want to build an HTML and you want to do a presentation out of it, but in the past we were doing the research and there was this library called XYZ. And that library produces some nice UI. And because that I can put it in a sort of an evaluation where I can say this is good or this is bad. Whatever is good will going to stay in the memory. Whatever is bad is going to go out of the memory.
That's amazing. So basically, when you refine stuff, it's going to pick up on it.
Exactly. So when I look at this particular trace, I'm able to see, all right, so let me try to get something that used the internet. So for the Swiss news, I created the workload and I said, create a news retrieval specialist. Fetch the latest news. And I was using Perplexity, latest news from 26th of September, 2025, Switzerland. And then that got a context and got the citation of where those particular elements came from. Now that context went as a next task to another agent, which is a news summarization expert that produced the nice presentation. What I could do is I could click here and then I could look into the trace of what happened. So as a non-technical person, you would really able to understand, let's say to this level, you had an agent and that agent was doing X, Y, Z. That then there was another agent that took over and then did again another task. But if you want to be a technical person to really understand what happened behind the scene, you are able to see exactly the trace of operation, how the memory was being tracked, what was being called exactly. So you'd be able to see the plan. You'd be able to see within the plan how you called that particular memory. Let me pick up any other workload here. How you picked up the particular memory. Oh, just a second.
I love that it can work like a black box for a non-technical person, but a technical person can actually deep dive and troubleshoot and understand what happens.
Exactly. And a technical person would be going through, right, this is the first call we did for our identified top Gen AI use cases in financial services. So that was the input that went as a prompt. And that was the output that came from the model that we chose on the plan. And then there was the short-term memory, where again, that particular output was shared so that the next agent will be aware of it. And that was the entity memory. This is the memory that was basically creating the entities and the relationship so that I could even limit that context based on those relationships. And then every call that I've done within the model, I would be able to see the entire plan and the answer that came from the plan. This is really powerful for if I want to start to do evaluation on the entire plan and be able to score how that plan is, and then be able to give a feedback. And that also gives me a good place where, as a technical person, I would be able to then seek on refining the score so that I would be able to reach that business outcome, that ultimate goal of being able to produce, such results that are going to be relevant to the business person.
Just a quick question, because I saw you wrote create an agent that does this. Do you just create the agents like just in time for doing a task and then you just recreate every time? Or do you log them, as you say, when you have like a perfect agent that does things exactly the way that you want, etc., you log them somewhere and then people just say, hey, fetch the news for me, because those are two different things, right?
Absolutely. And this is really nice because think of it as you could use Kasal as the kitchen, where you're able to create those plans, you're able to test those plans. And once you are happy with those plans and then you want to move them forward, I always talk about the deterministic world versus probabilistic world. So whenever we're creating the agents and the runtime and then running those particular workloads, this is a lot of probabilistic, where you have to deal with the art of the probabilistic through evaluation. But actually, when those agents are able to do for you, they are able to produce code. And that code could be something that once you validate, you like, you love, then that code becomes deterministic. Deterministic is cheaper. So how can I let the Kasal be the kitchen that produces the code for me, and then I could then deploy that code in a deterministic world? So for instance, let's take it the simple approach that everyone would be able to understand here. So let's say I produced that simple dashboard. That dashboard is a piece of code, and that visualization is quite nice. Imagine this is just a query towards the data. Now, all what I have is a code that got produced, and all I could do is I could take that code and then deploy it, and I know that this is not going to change. It was going to run exactly those queries. And I trusted it and I validated it, so I move on and I can have it to run afterwards. So what Kasal allows you to do is every time you, in the kitchen, develop those particular runtimes that are really good, you could then save them in a catalog. So I could go ahead here and then say, demo. So you open that catalog, and all that catalog is basically a catalog of, not technical agent or tools or. This is a catalog of a business plan that I'm able to use in my day-to-day to help me. So that means that since I'm able to produce that good result, I'm able to save it in a catalog. Everything that you do in Kasal through the UI is API first. That means you could load the catalog, get a plan, run the plan, get the result from the plan. And that can become quite powerful because then Kasal becomes a back-end service that you could put a front end that could be a sort of a chat bot, or could be a nice UI, or it could be, your internal services and UI that you have that you want to be able to call those agent plans that you already trust, trigger those runs, and then get that result that you wanted to have. So those particular plans are sitting in something called a workspace. So now it's called workspace. I'm not sure the future what would be the name. But why this is powerful? Because now if you see here, I showed you the concept of memory, the tools, the prompt instruction, but those are contained in a workspace. And that workspace, you could do it as a business relevant workspace. Why is this really good? Because the moment you put a workspace and you give it a memory and the instructions and the plans, you're going to optimize within that corpus of text and that language. So if I look at my marketing workspace, I could add who, in terms of my users, are able to use that marketing workspace. And within that marketing workspace, you could define 3 different roles. You're an administrator. That means you are able to choose which models you're allowed to use within this workspace. You're able to configure the memory, clean the memory. You're able to, take care of the hygiene of that workspace. But then you could be, as a normal user, you could be an editor, meaning you could create agents, tasks, plans, or you could be just an operator, which you're not allowed to do any of the, administration of the memory or instructions or anything, but you're only able to go to this workspace, open it, run a job in a parameterized format. And parameterized format becomes quite powerful because rather than, allowing the users to, sometimes they don't need to go in the technical details. You could simply say, look, I need to parameterize the plan. That means I will always search for a news. I don't know what news. So you load something and that thing, you run it, and then it will ask you, so what topic do you want to research? I want to research, let's say, agentic AI frameworks. And then you could give a date. I want to search everything from the 26th of September, 2025. So this allowed you now to curate high quality plans that you can expose to non-technical users that can only run. They cannot create, because then you can maintain the guardrails that you want on those particular plans. And what that means that as a user, as a non-technical user operator, I could simply either through Slack or through the Kasal UI or through my, SharePoint or whatever integration you've done, just call that plan and be able to then give those parameters that I'm interested in because I'm calling those type of data. And then you would be able to in Kasal see every step of the way, but then get the final result that is available there if you want.
Yeah. Then is Kasal main point or the challenge you are trying to solve is how do we surface or serve agents to non-technical users through a kind of safe way? You just allow them to use specific things that someone else has already curated, and this is it, right? So there is not the next stage where, okay, you have now this agent or this plan, I'm wrapping it and serving it as a product. Do you see my question?
Yes. In terms of agents in general, the agent is at the moment, mainly there are a lot of things you need to look into. So I'll try to highlight it here. Last time I covered it. So it's very important that whenever you're looking into agents, you're empowering them with decision making. You want to anchor them with the data. You want to work on the evaluation. You want to integrate the entire ecosystem. You want to anchor them with the business context. And at the same most important thing, you want to have the business outcome of that agent. As a journey, fast track for business people, in order to start to leverage such capabilities where they ask a business question and then they get something that they can trust, it's very important to look at every step, what I highlighted in terms of capabilities. And to do that in today, and more than ever, the technology is there and allowing us to go that direction. So the question is, how can we empower those stakeholders? So, but at the same time, I noticed I'm pretty technical and I like to develop myself and I like to be opinionated about things. But I still see it as really powerful because I can still be opinionated without even having to write code. I could still, say I want task 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. But at the same time, if I'm lazy, that's the name of Kasal actually. In Arabic, it means lazy. I could still as well be able to, do something quick because I know that it's not a problem. If I need to search for the latest news and I want to be able to do, a quick test on if I know this topic pretty well or not, I could simply, put a sentence and I can create, like this morning at 10 in the morning, I had a meeting and then I said, look, let me, create a quiz on Databricks certification. All of a sudden, I created a plan and then I was able to test how I know that answer on that topic, and I was able to immediately kind of get the result of, okay, I know that, or I don't know that. I got 0 here. But this is super powerful because, in one sentence, I could have an agent gather XYZ information from trusted sources and another agent to test me on that. And I really didn't need to write any code. This is super nice if I'm needing, my own learning stuff and my day-to-day activities. I could really have that nice approach of doing things.
To try and recap and make sure I understand, just for people who want to get started, because I feel sometimes we say technical versus non-technical, but I don't really agree with that. I think you have non-technical who just want to be presented with a UI and ask in natural language and that's it. Then you always have this one person who's tech savvy, but who's not a software developer and just doesn't have the knowledge, but wants to test out new things. And then you have the software developer, which is you. And I feel if you manage to leverage those people who are tech savvy, but not really software developers, but at the same time, what they have is subject matter expertise. So if I understand well, you can leverage that power user to try and create an agent and really provide the point of view of the SME. Then you can still have a technical person that goes into like ML flow traces, troubleshoot stuff, make it really production ready, and then back to not only the power user, but also the people who just are terrified of technology. But if you give them this tool when it works, is that like how you recommend that people go about it?
Absolutely. I mean, maybe the non-technical technical was the essence is meet your users where they are, and that might mean many different things. Try to simplify it in those two terms, but yeah, it's basically trying to simplify that journey around trying to achieve what they want to be able to achieve with. And today we see it with vibe coding, we see it with all these nice interfaces, but absolutely to your point, just meet them where they are. And the more, a person would be able to bring in the knowledge, the expertise to their instructions, they would be able to validate the outcome out of that, the more powerful you could get value out of that agent.
And so only the person who will build this needs access to Databricks, right? Or all the others, for example, all the other non-technical marketing people, they can access it through just the app.
Yes. So in terms of how they access it, so Databricks is a prerequisite to have in order to get that capability. So you need to be able to have a Databricks within your organization. Once you have Databricks within the organization, within Databricks, today at Databricks, we can access Databricks in this form where we're seeing the technical capabilities of Databricks, but we're also building this kind of nice seamless experience where you have a simple interface for users that would be able to directly start to ask questions, and it will immediately find the relevant products for them that are valuable, feasible, that are driving value. So it could be that immediately it finds those products or it answers those products. So what you see here in front of you is Databricks 1. And Databricks 1 follows a lot of the principles of what went into Databricks 1. So meaning that how can I make it simple and in few steps with single sign-on, be able to directly get that access. And once I get that access, how that one chat interface starts to allow me to build, all these maybe complex things, but they are quite powerful for my business, for my needs. So in terms of who has access, yes, you need to have Databricks. Once you have Databricks, the team within the organization, because it needs to have the governance integration within Databricks environment. You cannot install Kasal out of Databricks. It doesn't. You could install it because it's open source. You could do it, but as long as you run it within Databricks environment, then you get the full value of Kasal.
And going back to governance, you want people to be able to access only information they should have access to, which is why it's great that it ties with Databricks governance model.
The challenge we're trying to solve with Kasal is mainly to increase the productivity of ourselves on a day-to-day basis. Like for any internal stakeholder in any business, how they can be more productive by accessing optimized agents for a task that someone has curated for them.
Correct. So imagine today when you're mainly technology is the utmost goal is to help business desired goals that you want to achieve. That could be, as a consumer goods company, you want to increase the number of customers, and that might entail many different kind of steps that you have to do on the technical side. So what Kasal focus on is how would I be able to actually allow almost a business hackathon type, because I provide all the business all the technical blocks that are available. Agentbricks is the foundation where you have agents that are giving you high quality answers that are able to interact with different data. This is really powerful. Now, in order to get that data, there might be a sequence of steps that you want to do by calling some external system. I don't know, your SAP, your CRM, your Jira, your internal document. You might want to upload a file that has some important context in it. So the question here is, how can you enable how can you enable a business person that really has zero kind of development, technical or architectural background as a business go-to-market strategist, be able to do a hackathon by just simple kind of prompts? And that's really where Kasal can play a good role. So in terms of, if you want to draw a curve and if you want to plot it and you want to look at ease of use and then infrastructure, at Databricks, really, we have all the different building blocks, and then we're building that genie that allows you to talk to data. Imagine that piece on top that allows, ask 5 questions on different genie tables, then take those questions and then create a sort of a plan out of that, and then translate it to something that will send out an email. So if I go to my email here, for instance, I could see that I had plans that are going to read monetary policies from central banks, and it was able to, in the end, send it out in an email to my leadership or XYZ. This is something really powerful because you just don't have just an alert email that is scheduled, but you have basically sequence of events that led you to read data from different places, search online, join with that new information online around interest rates, whatnot, and then in the end go and then do an action within the ecosystem of that organization. So at the utmost thing, think of it, you're trying to, rather than build a solution on the side, you're trying to embed yourself within to try to understand that business context, that day-to-day activity.
So you're trying to templatize your tasks, really. So if I am...
Absolutely. You're business-driven, enabled by data, enabled by agents, and you're trying to basically continue to be business-driven on what you're trying to achieve.
Okay, got it. And so any saved agent, let's say in this case, or role agent is, for example, if I think of me every day, I have to do my marketing research. So every day I will go start researching different pages, reading, summarizing, all of these steps. I'm going to build it into an agent, and then I just have to call it the next day. And that's it.
Correct.
And I can do that for any task I want.
Yes.
Okay. Amazing.
And really powerful is, you have this concept of workspaces. You give it the memory, you give it the instruction, you give it the tools. You have the guardrails, you have the checks on all those different agents. That becomes agents that you could reuse. Like if you have a communication agent that is going to send out emails, I can actually use that in different business workflows. And what is nice around that whole concept is an agent can become a manager agent that is aware of all the agents around and can take that business goal and say, oh, who's actually going to send an email? Oh, you. Okay, let me delegate that job for you. I'll send you this job. You send an email. But before I sent you the email, I went on, some other agent that I said, who can help me on being able to answer what was the most effective marketing campaign? There was another agent that was calling, Agentbricks that had all the data that has been refined with a high quality to answer those KPI questions related to the most effective campaign. So you built an agent that talked to that piece, got that data, send it in an email, send it to your marketing colleague, look, what we're doing here in this campaign is really good. Something is working out. Let's try to figure out other things around that.
Amazing. Thanks, Nehmé.
Awesome. Thank you.